They laughed when she stepped onto the mat. Just a single mom, out of place and easy to overlook, or so they thought. Whispers turned to smirks, and smirks turned to challenges. But in a room full of egos and belts, no one saw what was coming. She didn't speak. She didn't boast. She simply moved, with the calm of someone who's been through far worse than disrespect. What happened next silenced the room in seconds. This isn't just a story about jiu-jitsu. It's about power, purpose, and a woman no one should have underestimated. Jessica adjusted the strap on her gym bag and stepped into the unfamiliar world of padded floors, belt ranks, and sharp-eyed athletes. The scent of sweat and disinfectant hit her first, an oddly comforting mixture for someone who had spent years in military training halls. But this was different. This wasn't the military. This was jiu-jitsu, civilian life, and she was starting over. The receptionist barely glanced up as she signed the waiver. A few heads turned her way from the mats. Quick glances followed by whispering. No one smiled. No one greeted her. Jessica was used to being in rooms where her presence commanded respect, but not here. Here, she was invisible, or worse, uninvited. She had enrolled in this local jiu-jitsu class for one reason: to reclaim something. After 2 children, the end of her military career, and more sleepless nights than she could count, Jessica needed to feel like more than just mom. She loved her kids with every fiber of her being, but somewhere between deployments, diapers, and divorce papers, she'd lost herself. She missed the challenge, the edge, the strength that used to live in her body, and the clarity that came with focus and movement. "New girl?" A voice asked behind her, dry and amused. She turned. A tall man with a black belt around his waist smirked at her as he passed. He didn't wait for an answer. Jessica nodded stiffly, trying not to let the comment get to her. She'd heard worse in the army, much worse, but here, where she was supposed to be starting fresh, it stung differently. There was a kind of arrogance in the air, a tight-knit atmosphere where new people weren't welcomed so much as tolerated. Especially women. Especially moms. "Class starts in 5. The coach called out, barely glancing her way as he walked by. He didn't ask her name. He didn't ask about her experience. She was a white belt now, same as every other first-timer, regardless of what she'd done before. Jessica took a spot near the back of the mat, tying the crisp white belt around her waist. The fabric felt foreign in her hands, not like the utility belts she once wore with pride, heavy with tools and gear. This one was light, symbolic. It said beginner. Around her, groups formed naturally. Students paired up with familiar partners, chatting easily between stretches. Jessica was left alone. She mimicked their warm-up drills, keeping her breathing steady, her focus sharp. Years of training taught her how to move with precision, but she held back. She didn't want to stand out, at least not yet. Laughter echoed from the other side of the room. One of the guys, a lean brown belt with tattoos up both arms, made an exaggerated show of pulling his partner into a mock choke. "Careful," he said, loud enough for others to hear. "Next thing you know, we'll have soccer moms teaching takedowns." Jessica kept her eyes forward, her jaw tight. Another student chuckled under his breath. The coach didn't correct the comment. He didn't even seem to notice. The drills began, and the coach started pairing people up. Jessica waited for her turn. The coach waved vaguely in her direction and motioned to a younger guy with a blue belt to work with her. "Just show her the basics," he said, already moving on. The blue belt shrugged. "Try not to get hurt," he said to her, grinning. Jessica didn't reply. She just nodded and stepped forward, letting her movements speak instead. As they practiced basic grips and positional changes, she followed every instruction carefully, not overstepping, not correcting, even when her partner's form was clearly sloppy. She wasn't there to prove anything. Not yet. She was there to learn, to listen, and to rebuild. The hour moved slowly, filled with quiet endurance. Jessica felt the burn in her legs and back as her muscles, long dormant, came alive again. By the time the coach called for cool-down stretches, her GI clung to her with sweat, but there was a strange peace in it. It wasn't glory, it wasn't recognition, but it was movement, and that meant she was still in the fight, whatever shape it now took. As she walked to the corner to grab her things, she caught more glances. Not cruel this time, just curious. Jessica ignored them. She'd come to train, to breathe, to remember who she was beneath the titles and the labels. She wasn't here for their approval. The rhythm of the gym faded into the background as Jessica gripped the edge of the bench, sweat still cooling on her skin. Her mind drifted, uninvited, to another time, another uniform. The memory came sharply, like muscle memory. The harsh desert wind biting at her cheeks, the weight of the combat vest pressing into her shoulders, the thud of boots on sand. A younger Jessica stood at the front of a dusty outdoor range, barking commands to a row of fresh recruits. Her voice was crisp, confident, and unquestioned. Move. Eyes up. Close quarters doesn't wait for hesitation. She was one of the few women in her unit, often the only one, but she never demanded respect with words. She earned it in the field. Through every drill, every live-fire session, every simulated ambush, she stayed composed. She could disarm an opponent in 3 moves. She could break down a Glock blindfolded. And when the men rolled their eyes the first time she stepped on the mat for combative training, she left them breathless on the floor within moments. She'd trained for war, survived it, and trained others to do the same. But no amount of discipline could have prepared her for the war she hadn't chosen. Her husband's death had come as a whisper, not a bang, an accident on a construction site while she was halfway around the world. A phone call, a folded flag, a single line in a letter. He was trying to provide for the family while you served. She'd held the funeral in silence, her dress uniform pressed and perfect. Her children, too young to understand, clung to her legs. In that moment, Jessica made the hardest tactical decision of her life, to leave the only life she had ever known, the Army, and come home for good. Back in the present, she wiped a bead of sweat from her brow and stood, forcing the memory away. This gym wasn't a battlefield. These students weren't soldiers. And yet, the terrain felt oddly familiar. Silent judgment, underestimated presence, subtle dismissals. She'd seen it before. She'd outlasted worse. Still, she made no mention of her past to the head coach, Coach Bennett, a broad-chested man with cauliflower ears and a habit of sizing people up too quickly. To him, Jessica was just another white belt, and he treated her as such. Each class followed the same pattern: warm-ups, paired drills, technique review. Coach Bennett would walk past Jessica with minimal comment, pairing her with the most inexperienced students, even when others were clearly struggling. Keep your posture, he'd say in passing. Eyes already somewhere else. Basic grip. That's all for now. He never asked where she was from, never asked what she did before. He didn't see her potential, or perhaps he didn't want to. Jessica didn't correct him. She moved with quiet discipline, adapting quickly to each lesson, her body remembering movements from her military hand-to-hand training, stripped of flash, refined for survival. She restrained the instinct to move faster, strike sharper, out of respect for the learning curve. This was their arena now, and she was a guest in it. The others didn't see it. Not yet. They saw a single mom trying to sweat off the years. They saw softness where there was steel. But Jessica didn't need them to see it. Not now. She was there to earn her ground, inch by inch. She knew how to wait. Discipline wasn't just about action. It was about knowing when to act. And right now, she was still blending into the background, just another white belt in a sea of familiar faces. But beneath the cotton GI and quiet expression, the ghost of a soldier remained. The gym buzzed with the usual pre-class energy, bodies stretching, belts being tied, and conversation that hovered just loud enough to be heard. Jessica moved through her stretches near the edge of the mat, her focus inward, her movements clean and deliberate. She was early, as always. Early meant quiet. Early meant avoiding unnecessary attention. That was when Mike strutted in. He wore his black belt with casual arrogance. The ends hanging like a badge of honor, he made sure everyone saw. His GI was spotless, and he had the kind of walk that screamed undefeated. Everyone knew him. He was loud, confident, and clearly one of the gym's top competitors. He'd been there for years, and he made sure newcomers understood it. As warm-ups began, Coach Bennett called out the drills. The students lined up, spacing out on the mat. Mike took the center spot, grinning as he glanced toward Jessica. His voice carried like it was meant to fill a stadium. "Don't worry," he said to no one in particular, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "We'll go easy on the soccer moms today." A few students laughed, not out of malice, but from the pressure to be part of the pack. Others exchanged awkward glances. Coach Bennett didn't comment. He rarely did when Mike spoke. Jessica didn't respond. She finished her stretch and transitioned into shoulder rolls without changing expression. The comment stung, but she swallowed it. Her discipline held firm, not because she lacked the words, but because she understood restraint. Words were for people who needed to be heard. She didn't. She was here to learn, to move, to rebuild from the inside out. And she watched. Each drill, each partner change, each mistake others made. Jessica absorbed it all. Her gaze was sharp but unassuming, always analyzing. She moved through the routines with economy and purpose, mimicking form, adjusting angles, listening more than speaking. Her training wasn't flashy, but there was a stillness in her that suggested depth, like water that ran deep and cold beneath a calm surface. Mike partnered with a newer student that day, someone younger and less experienced. He moved with speed and flair, demonstrating takedowns with the finesse of someone who knew the audience was watching. His jokes didn't stop. "Careful," he said, pinning his partner with ease. "Wouldn't want to end up like our brave new mom over there." Jessica, now kneeling at the side of the mat, sipped from her water bottle in silence. She didn't glare. She didn't frown. But her eyes flicked toward Mike just long enough to register his face, his footwork, his posture, the way he telegraphed his grip. She wasn't bothered. She was studying. During the next water break, the whispers began, same voices, new variations. Why is she even here? Doesn't she have kids to pick up? Probably just want to say she tried something tough for a week. They didn't speak to her directly. They never did. But the comments found her all the same. Jessica folded her towel over her knee, dabbing sweat from her brow. She caught her breath. Her eyes scanned the mat like a soldier watching terrain shift. She saw where others dropped their elbows too wide in guard, where they stood too upright, where balance faltered. No one noticed that she noticed. They saw quiet. They saw soft. They didn't see precision. Mike clapped his hands after another dominant round, nodding like a champion. The class prepared for one final round of partner drills. Coach Bennett, still seeing nothing remarkable in Jessica, gave her a slight nod toward another beginner. As the class resumed, Mike stood with his hands on his hips, casting another look across the mat. Jessica didn't look back. She tied her belt and waited for the next cue. She wasn't there to talk. She was there to train, and she was watching everything. Week after week, Jessica returned to the gym, quietly consistent. She arrived early, stayed late, and followed every instruction with focus. Her movements became sharper, her timing more precise. Where others rushed or hesitated, Jessica moved with calm intention. Not flashy, but deliberate, like someone who understood that control was more powerful than speed. During guard drills one evening, she shifted her hips with near-perfect alignment and executed a sweep that made her partner land softly but squarely on their back. "Nice balance," came a low voice nearby. Jessica glanced up. A senior blue belt, a quiet man named Luis, known for his technical skill and sharp eye, gave her a respectful nod before returning to his own partner. She nodded back, a subtle but meaningful exchange. Still, Coach Bennett didn't seem impressed. He continued assigning her to beginner-level drills, rarely commenting on her progress. If he noticed her growing precision, he didn't show it. Perhaps he thought it was luck, or maybe he just didn't look closely enough. Then came sparring night. Coach Bennett clapped his hands and called out the matchups, pairing students by size and skill. The energy in the room shifted, excitement mixed with nerves. "Jessica," he said, pointing. She stepped forward, waiting. "You're with Mike." A pause swept over the room. A few people snickered. Others raised eyebrows. One whispered, "Seriously?" Mike grinned, already stepping onto the mat and cracking his knuckles. Jessica said nothing. She bowed politely and took her position across from him, her expression unreadable. Gasps floated from the sidelines. Most expected a show, one that ended quickly and not in her favor. The mat felt heavier than usual, the air thick with expectation. Coach Bennett signaled, and the match began. Mike bounced on the balls of his feet, rolling his neck side to side, his grin stretching wider as he faced Jessica across the mat. The black belt around his waist swayed slightly with each motion, almost like a flag of his assumed victory. He gave her a quick wink, smug and dismissive. "Try to keep up," he said under his breath. Jessica didn't flinch. She bowed, stepped in her stance, and drew one long breath through her nose, releasing it slowly. Her eyes were steady, her hands loose. "No tensión, no flash. Just focus." The coach raised a hand. "Begin." The bell rang. Mike advanced first, relaxed, casual, showboating. He gave her room, offering a light grip on her sleeve, clearly not taking the match seriously. He moved like someone playing a game, not fighting an opponent. Jessica didn't rush. She waited, reading him like a familiar manual. The moment his balance shifted, his hips a half-inch too far forward, she reacted. With sudden, fluid precision, she gripped his collar, pivoted under his frame, and swept. Mike hit the mat harder than expected, his smirk gone in an instant. There was a flash of panic in his eyes, but Jessica didn't pause. She slid into side control, pinning him effortlessly. He tried to shrimp away. She anticipated it, hooked his far arm, and flowed into full mount. His breathing hitched. He tried to buck her off, but she shifted her weight, calmly adjusting her knees and positioning. She leaned, trapped his arm, and swung her leg over. The armbar locked. Mike's hand flailed for a second. Then tap. Top. Top. The room went silent. The sound of palm slapping mat echoed like a crack of thunder across the gym. The disbelief was audible, breaths held, mouths open, stunned silence. Jessica released the hold the instant she felt the tap. She stood slowly, brushed off her GI with one hand, and gave a respectful bow, not to Mike but to the mat. Mike remained seated, his face flushed, lips parted in quiet shock. He said nothing. Jessica turned and walked off without a word. No celebración. No smile. Just the calm, steady walk of someone who had done what they came to do. 28 seconds. The whispers that had once mocked her were gone. All that remained was silence. The energy in the gym had shifted. It wasn't dramatic, not all at once. But like the steady ripples after a stone hits still water, the effect of Jessica's 28-second submission spread quietly, then completely. She submitted Mike. Someone whispered near the water cooler. No yoke. Full mount to armbar. Clean, said another. Top it fast. Didn't even see it coming. By the end of the evening, Jessica had become something else. No longer a question mark, no longer invisible. She was now a presence, someone the others looked at instead of past. The curious glances weren't mocking anymore. They were respectful, cautious, some even admiring. The next class felt different the moment she walked in. One of the younger white belts offered her a spot closer to the front. A purple belt gave a small nod as he tied his belt beside her. It wasn't loud or over the top, just acknowledgement. And in a place where skill did the talking, that meant everything. Between drills, a brown belt leaned over during a partner rotation. That sweep you hit on Mike, he said, was textbook. You trained somewhere before this. Jessica gave a small smile, brushing a stray hair behind her ear. You could say that. Coach Bennett noticed it too. Later, during cool-downs, he approached her for the first time without indifference in his voice. Jessica, he said, motioning her aside. Where did you train before coming here? She looked at him for a moment, measuring how much to say. I was a combat instructor, she replied simply. Army. He blinked. Just once. Then nodded. That explains a few things. He didn't say more, but he didn't need to. The acknowledgement was there, in his voice, his eyes, and the way he didn't immediately walk away. It wasn't an apology, but it was a beginning. The following weeks unfolded like a slow sunrise. Jessica became a regular part of the mat rotation. No more awkward partner pairings. No more condescension. She rolled with blue belts, purple belts, and the occasional brown. They tested her, lightly at first, then with increasing intensity, and discovered that the quiet single mom wasn't just strong, but strategic, calm under pressure, relentless in execution. And then came the day her children came to watch. They sat on a bench near the edge of the mat, her daughter with a sketchbook in her lap, her son with wide eyes fixed on his mother as she demonstrated grip breaks and hip escapes. Jessica caught their gaze once between drills and smiled. Her son whispered, not to anyone in particular, "Mom's a superhero." He said it with the pure conviction only a child could carry, completely unaware of just how close to the truth he was. Jessica didn't cry, but something shifted in her chest that day. Something deeper than respect or vindication. Purpose. After class, as the students packed up, Coach Bennett approached again, towel around his neck, a clipboard in hand. "Hey," he said, "I've been thinking, would you be interested in helping with the women's self-defense program? I've been meaning to expand it, and I think you'd be a strong presence." Jessica paused, not out of doubt, but out of the weight of what that invitation meant. She had joined the gym to rediscover herself, to reclaim what she'd lost somewhere between military boots and grocery store aisles. She hadn't come to lead, but maybe she realized that was the next step forward. "I'd be honored," she said. Coach Bennett nodded. "We'll talk after Saturday's class." From that moment, something settled inside her. She didn't need to dominate. She didn't need to prove anything anymore. She had nothing to shout, but she had something to give. Strength. And this time, it wasn't for survival. It was for others. If this story touched your heart, like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more powerful, soul-touching stories that restore faith in humanity.